So today is mainly a celebration for pre-sale, which we've all been waiting for a very long time. And it's exciting to see that our incentive program members hop onto the pre-sale. And we're also joined by John, who's our Chief Marketing Officer today. So I'll maybe get him to give a bit of an intro in a second. But yeah, today is basically going through frequently asked questions, getting a bit of an update on what's going on, and it's good to see the audience growing. We've got 126 people now, so it's cool to see just chat about what's happening and celebrate the pre-sale again. John, if you're there, did you want to kick off with a bit of an introduction?
Yeah, hi everyone. It's been a busy day. Really thank you for your patience. Obviously, it's been quite an adventure with the load of the volume of people that got involved. So caught us by surprise, and it certainly caught the KYC providers by surprise. And we're working really hard in the background to make sure that everything goes much more smoothly moving forward. This is obviously a first for us. So, but our ambition is for everyone to be involved that wants to be. I'm just honoured to be here on this call with you, and I can take whatever questions I'll put into the stage questions chat. Other than ones that, of course, answered in the documentation if they're straightforward. But yeah, just basically thank you so much for your patience, and we're doing everything, and you wouldn't believe the amount of stuff that's happening in the background to make this an even better process for you all. So thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thanks for joining the community team, John. And you're right, there has been a lot of work going on in the background, and everyone's been on their toes. So it's exciting that we've been able to make this time to gather as a community. Luke, did you want to kick off with a bit of an update, given the excitement around pre-sale?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a crazy busy day, really exciting. And just to reiterate what's already been said, really thank you everyone for your interest and for taking part and for being here with us today. We're really grateful. So yeah, thank you. The pre-sale has been live for a little over 4 hours now. We're over halfway sold of tranche 1, and I reckon we might well get into tranche 2 in the near future. Of course, what this means for you guys is, if you're in tranche 1, you probably are if you're here on this call. You have an incentive reward account and are verified. You'll have access to that tranche 1. The rest of you who don't fit that description, you'll be able to have access from tranche 2 onwards, and I suspect you won't have long to wait for that. In terms of the verification process for the incentive reward program, we have obviously been through the main bulk of that now. The sheets that you can enter if you have issues, we've got one sheet which is for those of you that have been all the way through the process and have had issues. We've actually cleared that down. If you were expecting to hear back from us on that and have missed our ticket, please feel free to open a ticket. I know there's a handful of you, and we will deal with that for you. Those of you that didn't get your invitation, we're still working through that sheet. We've still got a few thousand to work through. They do take longer, more checks for us to do, but we are working our way through them, and we will get to you, and I thank you for your patience on that. And then the third process is those of you that need to change your email. We have those, we're processing those, and I hope to have an update which will go into the announcements around that before the end of the week. And all that remains to say is, those of you that have any information you're looking to get around the mainnet or the pre-sale, you can find a new section within our Discord server that covers off a lot of that. Additionally, you can find information on our docs website, docs.minima.global, and on the FAQs can be found for the pre-sale at presale.minima.global. That's everything from me. Thank you very much, Isha.
Awesome. Thanks, Luke. And yeah, definitely a huge shout out and a big thank you to our community for being so patient, but also being so supportive. And yeah, definitely heading to the right channels to get those answers to the frequently asked questions. I've just noticed as well, we've had Paddy join the call. So it'd be really cool to have him as co-founder have a bit of a chat, maybe towards the end, and I'll invite him up to speak if he's available. Barry, are you available to talk about the latest version and features?
Sure. I mean, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for everyone being here. We say very often at Minima that it doesn't matter how good your tech is, it doesn't matter how innovative and disruptive your blockchain is. Without the community and the community support here with us, we wouldn't be anything. The community is more important than the tech itself. At Minima, we've tried to do this the right way. We haven't asked people to invest in a white paper and a dream. We're delivering today, a finished protocol, a great product with, excellent utility straight out of the box. And all this, we've been working for 5 years to get to this moment, but this is still very much the beginning for us. Everything that is raised today will be funneled back into optimizing, rebuilding, and pushing adoption for Minima, and we really have great expectations. Once we're trading, once we're out in the greater crypto sphere, the people will realise who we are and what we can do and our potential, and the builders will come and the apps will come, and hopefully we'll be here for many years to follow. As a Paddy, he'll tell you all about it when he comes on stage. He's been working feverishly to get the protocol ready for this point. We've added lots of new features in the current build, extra security features with being able to secure your seed phrase, being able to set password backups. We've added SSL security onto RPC, so mini dApps can securely talk to each other. We've added the static MLS, the minimum location service. So if you do have access to a server node or know someone who has a server node, you can fix your MLS to that node, so you'll maintain connectivity with your contacts a little bit more securely. And we've also added permanent address features, which will allow functionality for dexes and marketplaces, etc. So individuals can create smart contract offerings to buy or sell whatever they're doing, and then always be able to be contacted by the person who's taking the other side of the trade. All the documentation and tutorials will be released shortly. Obviously, we've been very much focusing on the pre-sale over the last couple of months, so getting to this point today was key. Don't worry, all the documentation and support will be there for everyone who needs it, and we're very excited. So please stay with us. We appreciate your patience so far, and thank you for being part of the Minima family.
Awesome, thanks, Barry. Yeah, it's really exciting to see all the new faces, but then also all the seasoned minimalists who are still part of the clan and who have been just super supportive from day one, and really keen to see it grow into the future, especially after our pre-sale today. Jazz, did you want to add on to what Barry had to say around security and transitioning?
Yeah, definitely. So as you're all aware, we're now in the bootstrap phase of mainnet. This is a different chain to testnet, and you'll need to be on the mainnet. You'll need to be running a mainnet node in order to collect your rewards, your incentive rewards. So make sure you've updated, and you can run status from your node, the status command, and see which version you're running. And if you're on 1.0 or above, then you're on mainnet. If you're still on 0.103 or below, then you need to update your node to mainnet. If you're on Android, you can go to Google Play Store and get mainnet version from there. If you're on Docker, if you've got the Watchtower installed, then you should be updated automatically. If it hasn't updated automatically, you can check our docs, and that explains how you can install Watchtower. If you're running a server, you can run it on Docker, or you can also try a new method of using a script. That was preferable to some people previously, so that's now an option for you. And if you're using a manual method on a desktop, just running java-jar, then make sure you've downloaded the latest jar from GitHub. And the latest version at the moment is 1.0.19. So please make sure you've updated. And once you have updated, it's important that you take a note of your seed phrase. If you're on a mobile phone, you can go to the Vault page, and from the menu in the top right corner, you can see your seed phrase from there. And if you're running it on a desktop or server, you can just run the Vault command and you'll see your 24 words. You can use these 24 words if you ever lose access to your node, in case you need to restore access to your funds. So please write them down, don't leave them online, and keep them somewhere safe. But I do recommend taking frequent backups, because that is the easiest way to restore access to your funds if you, for some reason, lose access to your node. So frequent backups, they only last between 1 and 2 months, so make sure you're doing it frequently and that you're moving your backups to another device that your node isn't running on. So make sure you're storing them safely and securely. And yeah, I think that's all from me. Just maybe one more thing to do with seed phrases. I think there's been a bit of confusion in the community around when you get a new seed phrase. So obviously the move from testnet to mainnet was a hard fork. So that's a different chain, which means that you get a new seed phrase when you install that mainnet version. If you're simply installing another mainnet version on top of your old mainnet version, then you won't be getting a new seed phrase. And these are just minor updates. We're not expecting any more hard forks going forward. So all of these updates are just kind of minor fixes and improvements. They're not consensus critical to the blockchain in any way. So the only time your seed phrase will change is when you're moving from testnet to mainnet, or if you completely uninstall your node and then install from fresh again. So hopefully that answers some of the questions people have been having.
I think it's also worth adding that with the backups, they are only good for a couple of months, but should you not have a backup, lose a backup, or have a really old backup, you can fully restore from our archive just with your seed phrase. So it's not the end of the world. It's just good practice to have those local backups with you in the absence of the archive.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Thanks, Jazz, and thanks, Barry, as well. And of course, if you have any questions, make sure you're popping them in our chats and logging a ticket if there's anything in particular that's concerning you. We were going to have Adam, Chief of Partnerships, discuss a couple of the new partnerships that he may have noticed if you've been following us on Twitter and across our socials. But unfortunately, he's not able to make it today, so we'll leave that till next month. And we'll move on to John. If John, you could maybe take us through some of the frequently asked questions, especially on the KYC and the pre-sale process at the minute.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So firstly, the URL switch from presale.minima to live presale.minima, that was, believe it or not, the strategy created purely for people to arrive at presale.minima and then put in their email address and then get diverted to a place where only verified IC users could go and enjoy tranche 1. And the two things happened. One is that the KYC provider's server fell over due to the sheer volume of people. And second, the confusion over the URLs meant that a lot of people got panicked. And that coincided with a load of spam fake websites with slightly different spellings setting up. And so there was a kind of a cluster of all these things happening at once. So firstly, apologies for that. Secondly, in terms of KYC, what we then did is we implemented a backup plan that we only kind of created over the weekend because we thought, there's no way that the KYC provider is going to fall over. And the backup plan was that we're enabling people to reserve the coins that they would like. And that's, using either on a mobile, the MetaMask browser seems to work best on a mobile, or using a normal browser in desktop, requesting desktop site, or on a computer. As long as MetaMask is integrated and then you're using your site's connected there, the process is you reserve the coins, reserve the tokens as you wish, and then we're going to do the KYC afterwards you'll receive either there'll be an announcement in the channels or via email to enable you to go through KYC so that you can then redeem your tokens at the end of Feb. So it's a bit different than what was planned, because obviously you were meant to do the KYC as part of that. But the good news is that that will still happen, and we've also in this process adjusted the KYC so that we're doing the absolute minimum amount of friction for you guys, but making sure that we're regulatory approved at the same time. There's so much that could be added in terms of friction and bad user experience that we're just stripping out, because if we don't have to do that for regulatory reasons, then we won't. We're trying to just do the best possible experience that we can for you guys to get through, and so we're working hard on that. I mean, literally as we speak, there's things being done. So please watch this space about KYC, and apologies for the confusion over the URLs. I'm updating the announcements on a relatively regular basis. So anything that does happen in terms of fixes and so forth, that's the place to check. But you'll see in the English chat, at least, and maybe the other chats in the different languages, that people are finding workarounds. Mobile seems to be the big one. MetaMask wallet seems to be the way forward inside mobile. And incognito windows and a reinstall of MetaMask seems to be the workaround for desktop and laptop. And someone asked about the refund process in a support ticket. The current way of getting any refunds is to fail KYC. Obviously, as far as we're concerned, this is the best possible time to get involved with any form of token offering. The IC verified users are in at the 21 cents price. You can always see the tokenomics docs.minima.global and click on tokenomics to see exactly what the tranches will be. And as we speak, we're well over 50% gone now, so we suspect that today will be tranche 1 finished. But as I said, we still need to go through KYC for people who didn't go through KYC, so that number may change, because there may be people who don't get through the KYC process, and we really do hope that as many of you do. That's in all of our interests. So we're not intentionally putting in barriers for you to be involved. We want the opposite way around, if possible. Thanks, Isha. Oh, Isha, you're still on mute.
Okay, all right. Thanks, John. That's really helpful. And I think the biggest takeaway is that none of us had anticipated such traffic. So it was well beyond what we had imagined, and it's really exciting to see everyone just get on board and just be so excited about it, not just within their own communities, but then also spreading it to others as well. I see we've got Paddy on call as well. Paddy, you obviously have been the source of all of this, so I think it would be really good to have you talk about it. This is a big day for you as well.
Yeah, hi, hello, hi community, lovely to see you. Yeah, this is a big day. I'd like to say that I did expect this many people, and I'd also like to frame that by saying it wasn't our servers that went down, it was the KYC servers. So we actually had some very nice load balance systems in place, and they were actually handling the traffic very well, but it was the KYC provider's server who actually crashed, and that was what brought everything down. So that's the first thing I'd like to say. The second thing is what was mentioned earlier about this backup and archive node thing. For me, the reason the backups are better is because they're decentralized. What I mean by that is that all of you Minima users, all of us, we retain 2 months of the full data. That's why the backup only works for 2 months. And what that means is that if you've got a backup, you can speak to anybody. You just turn your node on, restore your backup, and then when you speak to someone, they have the data you need to resync your chain. The archive node, I feel, is a little bit more centralized because somebody needs to be running that, and there are reasons for running that. Exchanges run that, we run that, and it is it's the backstop and the default nuclear option in case something goes wrong. But that is the reason the backups are better, because you can restore from anybody on the network as long as your backup's a month old, a couple of months old, that's fine. But if you're 6 months, you're stuck on a desert island, you come back, then you're going to need to do something else, and you're going to need to speak, to someone who's got an archive node. Very simple to set up an archive node, I might add. I think we could be writing some better docs about that, frankly, and showing people how to do that. Currently the network's about 60 megabytes. Very, very small amount of data, uses a MySQL database. Whenever I say the word MySQL database, most people switch off, but it is actually very, very simple to set these things up. And in fact, speaking about that, I'll just finish about this pre-sale. This is, it has been a 5-year journey, and to be here now and to see this level of interest and to see, hard cash being swapped for Minima is humbling, frankly. It really makes you think that what you've done has been worth it, and I can only say that all of us have given our all. We haven't scrimped. We put in 100%, and I really hope that we can deliver what it is that you all want us to deliver, because we all want the same thing. So I really hope that that is the case. So as for the pre-sale, that is fantastic. I hope you won't mind if I just sidetrack a little bit, Aisha, if that's all right, and just have a little quick chat. I thought, since I've got you all here, I always love having a little rant about something, and currently there's a very topical currently there's a very topical thing happening in the crypto scene, and that's to do with all these ordinals and all these Bitcoin NFTs. And I think it's a very interesting point, because it really exemplifies something about Minima that is quite crucial. So I think I'll just talk about blocks and blockchains and how we use these blocks. So you've got Bitcoin. Bitcoin's got its blocks, and those of you who are listening to my previous rant will remember that I was going on about the 3 factors that make up a possible contender for the winner of the game of coins, and that is that you've got to be power backed and you've got to be hard capped. Okay, so Bitcoin does that. Bitcoin is power backed and Bitcoin is hard capped, and that means that there's a certain amount of money in the system, and that's all there is. And what that also means is that Bitcoin's security, what secures the network, is proportional to the fees paid by the transactions. So Bitcoin can't just print more money. It's only got a certain amount of money. Users who use the chain, they use their fees, and that is what pays the miners. Obviously, if the fees are low, then those miners get paid very little, which means that you could be paying some nefarious actors to perform bad things. So the fees are really important. And what's happened at the moment with these ordinals is that one dev who has managed to cause more ruckus than the entirety of the Bitcoin block space in the last 5 years came up with this way of inscribing, that's why they're called inscriptions, these NFTs on the Bitcoin blockchain. So you can upload monkey JPEGs to the Bitcoin blockchain. Wonderful. And what's happened is that the blocks are full. And what that means is that now that the blocks are full, the fees are going up. And those of you who've been looking at the furore on Twitter and all of that will notice that there's this group of Bitcoiners who are calling this sacrilegious, who are saying blasphemy, who are saying you are now using our block space for not really financial transactions, and everyone is having to pay more. Instead of being able to get onto the Bitcoin blockchain for 1 virtual sat per byte, you're now having to pay 1.5 or even 2 or 3. So the fees have actually gone up quite a lot. And it's very interesting, because the truth is Bitcoin has to have this. The fees have to be high, because if the fees are not high, then there is no security. So there is this real battle going on between users that want low fees and miners that must have high fees. So it's sort of interesting to look at. It's I don't know whether people who are complaining about this understand properly what it is that is going on, but they should be happy that the fees are high, but they're not happy because they want the fees to be low. So that's how Bitcoin does it. Bitcoin says, no, we're not printing, you have to pay your fees. Fine. And you get this sort of maelstrom of chaos where there's this dichotomy between what the miners want and what the users want. All right. Then along comes Ethereum. And Ethereum says, no. We want to know that our chain is secure at all times. So what do? They get rid of the hard cap. They say, no, we are going to print money. And when you find a block, when you're staking, stakers currently are getting, 7%, something like that. And we're just going to print that out of thin air. And what that means is that it doesn't matter what the fees are on chain. It doesn't matter how much you users are paying in fees. We know that the miners have always got money and the chain is always secure. On the flip side of that, though, you've had to give up the hard cap. Ethereum has had to say, no, we don't have a hard cap, but we know that we have security. So the difference now is that unlike Bitcoin, where fees must be high, on Ethereum, fees don't have to be high. Fees are just a function of your ordering in the mempool. Whoever pays more in fees gets into the block sooner. And that's like, okay. That's a different way of approaching this problem, but you've broken one of my tenets. You've broken the idea that, well, actually, I'd like to have a fixed cap. So you've got Bitcoin on one side, and they say, no, you have to pay with fees, so fees must be high. And you've got Ethereum coming along and saying, well, look, we're going to get rid of the fixed cap, and we're going to say that we're just going to print money out of thin air, and we're going to give it to the mine. It's very hard to come up with a number. Like, where did this 7% come from? At 10%, your money halves every sort of 7 years. Compound interest is one of the few functions that no one in the universe understands, frankly. It's an enormously powerful thing. And so everybody's money melts. It's a fee that is paid by everybody, regardless of whether you're using the chain or not. And I sort of feel that it's quite unfair, frankly. And especially how to pick the number. How is this, where did they pick, how much you're actually going to make when you're staking? So those are the two big boys, and that's what they're doing. And then along comes Minima. And so what does Minima do? So Minima says, look, we've got to have a hard cap. Okay, fine. And Minima, as you know, has this burn mechanism. So when you send a transaction, you can burn a little bit of money. That doesn't go to a miner. There are no paid miners in Minima. When you burn, that is like that is basically a fee that is paid to everybody, because everybody's amount goes up by a proportional amount. You divide whatever your burn is between all of the users. And what's very interesting about that is that Minima has a system where we do have a hard cap, and where fees like Ethereum and unlike Bitcoin do not have to be high, because Minima's security is not proportional to the amount of fees / burn paid by the users. Minima's security is purely a function of the number of users. And so, when I look at the three chains and I think, which system do I want? I have to say, I think Minima's, smashed it on that one. We now have a system which has the hard cap, as we all know. We want a hard cap. I don't want my money to melt. I want to know that my stake in the system is how much I have, and that is how much I will have forever. And nobody can touch that. Nobody can dilute that. And we now have a system where fees don't have to be high. I imagine a future where we're all operating on some light speed infra fiber network, and we can have thousands of transactions going, 50 years from now, et cetera. There may come a point where, there is no real limit set on how much traffic we can send over the network, and fees can be very low, and we can still handle it because computers are super fast. Well, guess what? In that scenario, Bitcoin is going to be totally insecure because there won't be any fees. And guess what? In that point, Ethereum is going to be pretty useless because you're melting the chain, you're melting your coins for no reason. Whereas on Minima, we don't have that problem. On Minima, we have this system where our security is not dependent on this function of fees. Our security is dependent on something else. Our security is based on the number of users. And I just think that's very interesting. That's a really nice feature. And when you look at it, it's not like, what have we had to sacrifice to achieve this? Well, as you all know, Minima only works because of you. Minima is only here because of the community, because of the number of people that use it. That is the compromise that we have made. We have said, well, look, this is only going to happen if enough of you are available to do the minuscule amount of work that we ask of you to secure the chain. And it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if enough of you want to use Minima, then we will be secure because people want to use it. But if people don't want to use it, then there won't be enough of you. Then it doesn't really matter, does it? So it's sort of like, if it's going to work, it'll work because enough of you will use it, so we will be secure. So that's a really nice feature, then all this ordinal inscription stuff makes me think about that. And going on just a little bit, if I may, I'd just like to mention that there is another method that miners make money out of users, and this is known as MEV. This is known as miner extracted value. What does this mean? So this means that when you have people that you're paying to build your blocks, they will try to extract as much value out of that block as possible. And what they can do is that they can order those transactions in a block in a specific way, which is beneficial to them. So if you imagine a DEX, there's a DEX where you can buy something. I'm the guy that builds the block. I see that Barry has put in a nice fat order to buy some Baz coins. And I'm like, oh, okay, Barry's about to buy some coins. Why don't I stick a buy in before Barry? Then Barry, then Buddha, sticks in his buy order, and buy order this up, because that's demand. And then I'll stick another order in directly after Barry's transaction to sell my coins. And what that means is that I'm guaranteed a profit. That means because I put in my transaction before his and then my transaction directly after his, I could put loads of, all the buy orders that I've got. I could put mine in before all of them. Then I can process all of those, and then I can put my sell in at the end of it, and that is my block. And what's interesting is that, if the block goes through, then there is no way I cannot make money out of that. This is now a massive thing. Ethereum is the king of this, of course. The king of this idea that you all need to be milked and rinsed, and that miners should be able to front run you and put transactions in before and after you. Again, that sort of troubles me a little bit as well, because it sort of skews the incentives. It means that you're not just putting transactions in because of the fee that they're paid. That's a very nice, clean way of looking at it. I've got my mempool, I look at the burn, I order them by how much people are paying, and that's the transactions that go in. As soon as you start playing with this whole MEV thing, then there might be reasons for you not to include users' transactions. You might find that there are more profitable things for you to do by excluding totally valid fair transactions that pay a high fee. And you're like, well, actually, I can make more money if this happened. So I don't like it because it skews with the incentives. So what do we do on Minima? Well, on Minima, MEV is actually impossible. You're like, well, how can it be impossible? Clearly, I could, put the transactions into a block. Well, on Minima, there is no ordering of transactions in a block. On Minima, a block is a unit of time, and every transaction in that block is processed simultaneously at the same time, and either they all pass and the block is valid, or they all fail because one of them failed and the block is not valid. So there is no way of using the technical way of explaining this is that in Minima, there is no way of using an output. Transactions have got inputs and outputs. And on Minima, there is no way of using the output of a transaction in the same block for the input of another transaction in the same block. Every transaction in a block in Minima, all of the coins that go into it must be valid from the previous block. And that's really nice because it means that what that means is that when I receive a block, all of the transactions are completely independent of each other. None of the transactions affect any of the other transactions. All of the transactions occur simultaneously at the same time, and either they all pass and the block is valid or they don't pass. So block time is the unit of time, and within the block, there is no subdivision of that time. So there is no MEV on Minima. Really nice. No skewing of the incentives. I like that. And what another really nice feature of that is that when Ethereum needs to process a block, it takes all of the transactions. And because the end of one transaction can affect the beginning of another, so I can run a transaction, and at the end of that transaction, it affects this global state, and it says, no, I'm going to change this global variable. And then the next transaction, 3 transactions down, uses that global state, which means that I have to process the transactions sequentially. It means I have to process the transactions one at a time. I can't take all of the transactions and process them all simultaneously because I don't know whether one transaction is going to affect another one. The way to think about this is if I wanted to deliver apples to a farm. I've got a truck, and the truck can carry 50 apples, and I've got to deliver 1,000 apples. So what am I going to do? So I've got to do it sequentially, yeah? And so what that means that I have to do 20 journeys. I have to do one truck, 50, then I have to get, truck drives back, then I fill it with 50 more apples, then it goes. I have to go backwards and forwards 20 times. Now what you really want to do is you want to buy 20 trucks. Yeah, that's the way to do it. I want to put all the apples into 20 trucks and you can go. That's much faster. That's an order of magnitude faster. And that is known as parallel processing. And that's what Minima lets you do. Because on Minima, because all of the transactions are processed simultaneously, what that means is that when I get a block, I can take each of the transactions in the block and I can just send it to a separate thread. I can send it to a separate core, and that processing unit can process the transaction and it returns a reply of, yes, this is valid, or no, this is not valid. And parallel processing is something we've known about for decades. Yeah, we've had this for ages. Your phone has 8 core, rubbish little Samsung phones have 8 cores. They're never used because you have to write software with parallel processing to actually get the best out of it. But what that means is that on Minima, we are perfectly parallel. On Minima, when I receive a block, I can process all of those transactions at the same time, given however many, adding another processing unit is a, standard technique. You get chips that have got 64 processing units in it. You only ever use one because people always write software that only runs sequentially. But if you could run it in parallel, then you get a real boost. Then you get a real order of magnitude more power throughput. This is the dream. I hear about this on Ethereum. I mean, even Bitcoin, unfortunately, has this flaw because you can do outputs from transactions in the same block as inputs to transactions in the same block. So even they have to be very careful when they're processing them. And all of this stems from the fact that, Minima tries to remove this centralizing force. Minima tries to remove this ability for a select cartel of users to squeeze you, to make money. Not because I actually, don't like that. I don't like it. The reason we're trying to remove that is because it centralizes. Because when we fight each other, there's always a winner. When there's a competition, someone will become, the one to rule them all. And that's exactly what you don't want. So in removing the ability of miners, removing this incentive structure for the acquisition of the hash power, the acquisition of the weaponry required to attack the network, we have managed to come out with all of these very, very nice features. We've got the hard cap. We don't have to have high fees. That doesn't mean fees won't be high when there's moments of congestion, when there's lots of you trying to send transactions, fees might spike. Fantastic. But we don't have to have high fees. Yeah, and we've got a hard cap. We don't have to have high fees. We don't have any MEV, and we are perfectly parallel. Yeah, which means that sometime in the future, it may perfectly be possible to process thousands of transactions a second, simply because it's very easy to stick lots of processing units onto a chip. Yeah, this is current today technology. We don't need anything to change. You just need to write the software to be able to handle it. And all of this, all of these thoughts sprung out of what I've been saying happening, with this ordinal inscription phase of Bitcoin. So I just wanted to let you know these are some of the things that you are all investing in. This is the technology that you are getting involved in. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I have enjoyed designing and writing it with my team. Thanks for listening. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks, Paddy. We've actually had someone in the community ask about or mention Ethereum's burn mechanism, and obviously since Ethereum switched to proof of stake, we've noticed that the inflation rate's been very low and for some periods even deflationary. So did you want to speak to that at all?
I think unfortunately, I've got to say, I think it's a complete con, because what happens on Ethereum is that they pay the miners and they penalize the users. What I mean is that when users send transactions with EIP 1559, it's your fees that are being burnt. It's your money as a user that is being burnt. Miners who get the money, their money isn't burned. And so actually it's a really unfair mechanism, which clearly is advantageous to the cartel of users that are running, and clearly disadvantageous to the users. So even though you would call it a deflationary system, doesn't matter. It's an equity. It's not a commodity. It's like a share buyback scheme. If share buyback schemes actually work, then you could continue to keep buying back your shares until there was one share, and just, it's frankly a con. But yeah, that's what I'll say about their scheme.
Thanks, Paddy. Yeah, it's always special to have something like Minima where it truly is decentralized and it does rely on not on miners but on the strength of the community, which is something that a lot of blockchains and a lot of blockchains do claim to have, but we don't see it. Like
just to say, if you think about it, sorry, just another little point. So the stakers are making 7%, yeah, and so there's like, I don't know, something like $10 billion, $20 billion, whatever, staked on Ethereum at the moment. So they've been sitting there this year mining, staking the chain, which basically means they've got a computer set up which does it for them. Let's say Vitalik's got a bill. Yeah, he's got $1 billion staked. He made 70 million. Now, did it cost him 70 million in running that server? What was the how close to, what you want is the cost of the good to trend towards the price, of production. And so what they're offering you, the security they're offering, is it really worth what you're paying them? Do you feel you're paying them a little bit too much? Who's deciding how much you're paying them? It's a very system, which is why I don't like it. The fee system is much more free market based. The fee system is actually like, there's a free market, you can pay a fee, and that's what on Bitcoin, and that's what supplies the security of the chain. It has its flaws. Ethereum system's like, no, we're going to pick a number and that's how much we're going to make, and they're clearly making 10 times more than they're actually spending on running the systems that are actually securing the chain, which frankly sounds completely unfair. We sidestep all of that because we don't do that on Minima, because we don't pay the miners that. The only thing we have is the fee market for the burn, which is a free market system. And none of the, there's no magic numbers. I haven't had to come up with the numbers of what you're paying. There is no fee that is set by me. You set that yourself. That's what you want. That's what the system needs. And that's why Minima does it the way it does.
And also, the Minima burn is destroyed. And effectively, by reducing the total supply of Minima, it's paying everybody. Everybody is benefiting.
I've said this before, Baz, we're harder than Bitcoin and smarter than ETH.
100%.
Yeah, but we are also deflationary, aren't we? Because we burn. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for joining, Paddy. Really appreciate hearing from you.
No, thank you. Thanks so much.
Awesome. I know the community always loves hearing from Paddy as well, so thanks for making the time. We had some questions from the Stage Questions channel, and I know most of them have been answered already, but I was thinking it could be a good idea to go through them anyway. So I might just throw them out to the community team as well, if you could help answer them. So the first one I've got is, what percentage do we get from the incentive rewards when TGE begins? Do we get 100% of the minimum that we've acquired so far? So Luke, did you want to answer that one? Oh, Perry.
I could do this if you don't mind. I mean, we have, the incentive reward program was designed to incentivize users to run our software and maintain the nodes through testnet, finding bugs and helping us out. Obviously, we had to draw a line under it and close the system for new people. But even if you joined on the 31st of December on the final day and only collected one reward, after TGE, you will still receive 75 coins at 6 months and 75 coins at 1 year. So an extra 150 coins for each member post TGE. So it's got nothing to do with the amount of coins you've earned so far. It's purely a reward for your loyalty, for sticking with Minima, for continuing to run your node and being part of the community.
Awesome. Thanks, Barry. And I think the other thing as well is that for those people who've mentioned what they've been allocated during competitions or awards, they can expect more news once we get past pre-sale and token distribution, hopefully in the next month or so. So just keep your ears and eyes peeled, and we'll get through to you. The other question we had was actually regarding the percentage of tranche 1 that's currently been sold and how we can get access to this. So Luke, did you want to speak to that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. If people take a look in the announcements channel, they can see that we posted a link to the contract. You can go in there and see the total USDT sold. Worth noting that there's obviously 6 decimal places on that one, so you need to count back. But looking at it a few minutes ago, there's over 1 million sold so far, about 48%. So yeah, well on our way.
Awesome. It was like 46% a couple of minutes ago when I had a look. So that's awesome. Sorry, Barry, you were saying.
Yeah, so tranche 1 is available to verified incentive reward system users, and you can access it at either presale.minima.global or livepresale.minima.global.
Mm-hmm. Following which anyone can access tranche 2. So once tranche 1 closes, it'll be open to the public, right?
Correct, yes.
Awesome. Cool. The other question we had was regarding the roadmap, and I know it was asked last month as well. And I mean, I could speak to that as well, as we don't expect to have any changes to our roadmap with the SEC regulations or anything that has popped up. So as of now, our roadmap is unaffected, unless anyone else had anything to add to that. Jazz, maybe?
So, I mean, I'd like to say, regulation for the whole industry is long overdue and very welcome. The powers that be are chasing their tails and not bringing in correct regulations in time. A lot of the language in proposed regulation talks to protocols that are not 100% decentralized. So I think there's going to be instances where Minima will fall outside of regulation because we are truly peer-to-peer, because we are truly decentralized. If they wanted to restrict transactions on a true peer-to-peer nature, they have to do it for in-person cash transactions as well. So, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know exactly, but I think there's going to be lots of regulation that we will just be on the periphery of. I mean, we're obviously going to be as compliant as we can, and we expect individuals to follow the laws of the land, but it will be interesting to see what happens.
Can I just sort of add that being worthy of attack is something I long for, and when they come for us, then the truth is that's the moment. Yeah, I mean, I get butterflies when I think they're going to come for us, because I think, okay, this is what Minima was written to do, and really what the question is when they come for us, which they will we be able to survive that attack? Now, it took one blog post to censor 50% of the Ethereum chain. They did one blog post and they said, don't do this, and 50% of the Ethereum chain was censored. Okay, that's the current bar. I think in that regard, Bitcoin censorship is much better, anti-censorship is much better than Ethereum. The mining cartel, the industry that is mining, has not centralized enough yet. It is moving in that direction, and I see no change in that. 10, 20 years from now, I just don't know how there's not going to be 3 miners that control the whole chain. You don't have to totally censor a transaction. Slowing its input into the block is enough. Being able to say, the American transactions get processed before the Russian transactions, that might be enough. Yeah, that's the sort of incentive that would be palatable to a strong US mining force. Whenever I see Jason Lowry talking about this hash force thing that he does, I think that's wonderful. It's very interesting, but that really isn't the goal here. So I would rather say that they are going to come for us, and what I have to say is that Minima is written in such a way that when they do, we will be able to withstand that attack, and that is really the moment that I am waiting for, and I look forward to it.
The point being that we can't turn it off. We don't have the bells and whistles. We're decentralized.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, who knows what they're going to do, but as Barry said, they're going to have to change a lot of laws to come after something as decentralized as Minima. They're going to have to, 1984 was a book, but I'll tell you what, I'm seeing a lot of it out of my window, and that is the world we are trying to prevent. This isn't just about making money and having fun and sending each other pictures, etc., etc. This is, at its core, really quite a fundamental issue about human freedom and what we are allowed to do as free beings, residing in this universe, and that battle is only just beginning. And frankly, I think they have only just begun. They haven't even started. They haven't even really started to squeeze. And, we're seeing that at the moment. They're choking us all off. Try and get your money in and out of an exchange. Every single bank is saying no. There are simple things they can do, and then there's legal, there's law that they can do. Not what I would call natural law, not what I would call, the law of humans, their own made-up laws. And, I think we need to realize that this is only going to get worse before it gets better. And, the end game really is for us to become powerful enough and wealthy enough and valuable enough for us to support and to promote the speakers and the government officials who believe in what we believe in. That's how this works. The fact that they have all the money means that they can hire all the politicians. It's not I don't think of it as corruption. I just think of it as, where's the money? It's pretty simple.
I think I'll just interject here somewhat. I mean, obviously we're apolitical and agnostic, so the view of this very much something that is out of our purview. I've noticed that there's other questions as well. Isha, do you want to ask Paddy one of the technical bits in the questions?
Absolutely.
Good idea.
Well played, John.
Isha, over to you.
Awesome. So one of the questions that we had was regarding the supply and how that would increase over time. So I'll just go with what they've asked. So with the burn of Minima causing a slight increase in price, paying the community for transactions, over time, will this, let me make sure I'm reading this right, does this not over time, with the huge amount of transactions going on, limit the supply exponentially? Paddy?
No. Is the bottom line. I mean, the amount of burn compared to the total amount of minima is frankly insignificant. For us to lose 1 decimal place, we have 10 digits, 1 billion minima, and 44 decimal places after that. For us to lose a decimal place would require 90% of minima to be burned. So no, I do not see that as something that could happen in a millennia. In as long a time frame as I can imagine Minima working, we have used mathematics that is of a high enough resolution. You could run Minima on 1 minima. You pick a billion because it was just a number we pulled out of the air. But frankly, if you had 1 minima with 44 decimal places, we still got 25 more decimal places than Bitcoin, even with 1 minima. So no, there's definitely enough units to go around. To absorb whatever it is you're going to burn.
Mm-hmm. And one of the other questions we had was regarding Minima being future-proof. I think you've touched on that as well, that we do have everything designed to make Minima future-proof and to remain decentralized in the long term, and that can be seen in our documentation as well. I think the last question that we wanted to ask was regarding, I think Barry had mentioned the SSR for RPC, which would allow mini dApps to talk to each other in a secure fashion. Is there something that you wanted to speak to regarding that and how that would affect building on Minima? Paddy or Jazz?
I'll just chip in there as well. Obviously, being able to speak to Minima securely is very important. The mini dApp system has its way of doing it, and you've got the mini dApps that can talk to it like that, and that's totally fine. But the mini dApp system is not part of Minima. The mini dApp system is a layer on top of Minima. There may be another mini dApp system in a few years, mini dApp v2, which is completely different and uses a different structure and et cetera, et cetera. So Minima is finished, Minima the protocol. But how you talk to Minima, currently we have different ways of doing that. And the RPC is basically a base level, which means that you can now write applications in any language you want. You could write it in C, you could write it in Java, you could write it in, the mini dApp system is specifically a web-based system because that's the largest development community, and there's all the MetaMaskers out there, and we're trying to, get involved in all of that action. But if you wanted to write an application yourself in a different language, then you would need to speak to Minima. And now that we have the RPC over SSL with a password, it is possible for you to do that. So that opens up a very large, interesting search space of ideas and possibilities. That's it, really.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Paddy. I'm just keeping an eye on the time as well. I think we're at the end. So unless anyone had anything else to mention in particular, I think I'll wrap up. Nope. Okay, that seems to be us then. I think the last couple of things just to mention as well, just regarding a single source of truth. So we've had a lot of people getting quite confused and looking at alternative sources. So our single source of truth will always be the announcements channel. So if you've got any questions that you feel haven't been answered, they will probably be in there in FAQs. And I feel a lot of the community team's time has gone into just directing people to those FAQs. So please, if you have any questions, make sure you look over there. And we've got a really strong so if you do have any questions, there are a lot of channels for you to ask them on. And the last thing, which we've mentioned quite a bit in our announcements, is just be wary of scammers. Minima has grown significantly, and we're getting a lot of attention. So, Barry, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I'd say Minima is only available at presale.minima.global in US dollar T only, and at live presale.minima.global. There's no airdrops, there's no ETH, no BNP. Ignore these scammers. They're just harvesting your data from the channels and trying to rip you off. So do take care and do participate in the correct pre-sale. Thank you. Be safe.
Awesome. Well, thanks, community team, and then thanks also to Paddy and John, especially for turning up today, and thanks to the community. We're really excited to see where everything goes, and obviously today's been a really exciting day with the pre-sale, so I guess we'll catch you in March.